Hey guys, this is the Revolutionary Male. My name is Alex, and tonight I'm going to go ahead and read an article from Medium.com, one of my favorite websites to pull from. Why it's hard to date women over 40. We know who we are and we know our worth. Written by Yael Wolf, Y-A-E-L. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Let's get into this. There's something I've learned about myself in my 40s. It is very hard for men to date me, to fall for me, to love me. That's not good. You don't want to be the kind of woman it's hard to love or care for or fall for. I mean, unless you don't want love. You need to be somebody who is relatively feminine, agreeable, cooperative, because that's what it takes to be a woman and make a relationship work. You have to be able to engage in conflict resolution. You have to be able to communicate. There's all kinds of things that those skills can actually help to resolve. But I don't know, maybe she has those skills and that's not the problem. Let's find out. You see, I'm no longer the desperate young woman of my past who was hoping to fast track her dreams of becoming a young wife and mother. I'm also no longer the desperate almost middle-aged woman trying to find her last-minute life partner so she can pop out a baby before it's too late. Yeah, that's a problem. If you're a young, desperate woman trying to become a wife and mother, and you're just so desperate you're not actually taking into consideration the men you're being with or dating, then you're going to run into lots of problems. You're going to push good, decent, high-quality men away because good, decent, high-quality men aren't interested in looking for a woman who is just desperate to accomplish a goal. They're interested in finding a woman who is interested in them, who wants to be with them, who wants to date them, who wants to love them for who they are and what they can provide and do. Otherwise, you're just, a woman checking off a box. Continuing. It is too late, guys. The days of young wife and mother are long gone. The days of squeezing in a geriatric pregnancy are over. And here's the big problem. I'm happy with my life and myself. I'm not sure why that's a big problem. For you, I presume that would be good. I guess it's a big problem for men, because now that she's happy with herself and her life, she's like this snooty woman who's completely impossible to satisfy. Continuing, I have made peace with the way it has unfolded. I'm not desperately hoping for a last-minute intervention, or desperately searching for something to fill a hole in my heart from my youth. To put it more simply, I'm not desperate. Well, Yael, I hope that is true, for your sake. Not being desperate, I've found, is super inconvenient for what seems to be a large number of men on the dating market. Everyone says desperate women are exceedingly unattractive, but that's a myth so far as I can see. If that were a myth, if that's not true, if desperate women were unattractive, then you would have found a guy. But you're not with a man. You don't have a child. You don't have a family. So clearly, either you didn't do it right, you were not one of the many attractive desperate women, or there's a conflict here that you haven't quite resolved. Continuing her article, my experience has been that self-possessed women who don't feel a pressing need to change the circumstances of their lives are the ones who these men find hard to date. You see, a woman like me knows what she is looking for when it comes to dating. I might not have all the details worked out. For instance, I don't know what kind of container I want, marriage, monogamous partnership, deeply connected lover, etc., but I know exactly what I want to put into the container. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem. If you're out there dating and you have no idea what it is you're looking to accomplish, then you're going to run into issues because there's different kinds of men and there's different kinds of women. There's the kinds of men that you can have casual relationships with. There's the kinds of women you can have casual relationships with. And then there are the kinds of men and kinds of women where you can't even do that. You can't even have casual relationships with them. They're just good for, fun. And then there are those people who date with intention, who date with an outcome in mind, who date with a goal of getting into a long-term relationship, getting married, and starting a family, or just getting married if they don't want children. You have to have something in mind. You have to date with intention. You can't just go out there and randomly pick, especially as a woman, because at least initially, you're the sexual selector as the woman. Women are the ones who get to decide who gets to have sex and who gets born. Men are the ones who decide who gets relationships. Continuing our article now. You see, I already read that one. Whether it's with a man or a woman or anything beyond or in between. Okay. I want intellectual and creative stimulation. I guess she's bisexual and into trans as well. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I want mental, emotional, and spiritual sparks. I want someone who opens my mind and soul. I want someone who will go as deep into the boundless depths of the universe as we are both, willing to go. Yeah, that sounds like quite a heavy burden to put on another person. Not sure that's fair, but that's just my point of view. I think if you're going to put a heavy burden like that onto another person, they're going to crack and collapse and fail because it's not possible to meet all those things. I want someone who is overflowing with sexual energy and who wants to use that energy in creative and unusual ways. Someone who is hungry to use their sexual energy as a portal to greater understandings of self, of other, of love, of the world. I want someone who will argue with me, who will challenge me and demand my accountability, who will take my challenges seriously and remain committed to their own accountability. This is crazy. Lady, this is not how you treat other people. It's not fair to put all of these expectations on the people you don't even know. A person like this, who is capable of these things, is going to be extremely rare. And if they exist, why are they going to pick you? And this doesn't just apply to you as an individual woman. This could apply to anybody, a man or a woman. You have to understand what it is that you bring, what your value is as an individual person, the skills that you have, the things you have to offer. And then compare that with what you're looking for. And make sure they kind of match up. I want someone who will see me as a treasure, not something to covet, but something to cherish for as long as we are both given time together. Someone who will hold, love, and protect my heart above all. This sounds like Disney fairy tale princess crap. This is not real. Human relationships are not like this. They're complicated. They're filled with conflict and stress, as well as love and comfort and security and accountability and all these other good things. Because she continues, that might be a long list, but really it's quite simple to me. I don't think so. If it were really as simple as you're claiming to be, or anybody would claim something like this to be, you would have found it by now. I know what I want, but that's only half the story, she says. There are two ingredients in the making of a woman who is difficult to date. One is her knowledge of herself and her desires. Check. The second is that she knows her worth. Women in this culture are sent into the dating pool at a great disadvantage. No, they're not. Women in the modern dating pool are the sexual selectors. Women have always been the sexual selectors in the modern world. You guys get to decide who has sex and who reproduces. That's an incredible amount of power. Women are not powerless. Never have been. This is an absurd claim. And in fact, in the modern dating pool especially, women have an obscene amount of power, especially with online dating. More men are on pretty much all online dating websites, so they outnumber the women, and the women have their pick of whoever it is that they want. It's a lot harder as a modern man to date than it is as a modern woman. And this is something I've covered in other videos, so I'm not going to go into everything now. Let's continue our article. We are taught over and over again to undervalue ourselves in the workplace, in friendships, and most especially in romantic relationships. Yeah, I don't see that either. We live in the world of female empowerment and feminism as an hegemonic ideology. That is not a world where women are told to undervalue themselves. In fact, women are told to overvalue themselves in all of those realms, which may or may not be a good thing depending on the context. I'll say that. We're taught that our expectations are too high. We want too much. We're made to believe that vocalizing our standards makes us nags and harpies. We're too emotional. We're irrational and illogical. Our perspectives and reactions have to be tempered by the acknowledgement of our, periods. And you know how I feel about that. She's linking to some other article she wrote apparently here. Maybe your expectations are too high. There's been research that's come out where they compared married men to single men And the one major factor that differentiated why the men who were married and why the men who were single was that the men who were married made 55% more income than their wives. That's a pretty high expectation that most men are not going to be able to meet, especially in the modern world where the modern woman is out there earning her own income. We are regularly undermined and gaslit when it comes to romantic relationships, and that happens even with a partner who has the best of intentions and even within ourselves. Yes, we are taught to undermine and gaslight ourselves. Wow. This is pretty impressive. She is blaming everything, I guess, on society or all men. Even the men, apparently, who have the best of absolute intentions, the absolute best of intentions, are gaslighting and undermining the women in their lives. Does this sound like it makes any sense whatsoever? No, it does not. This is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Most men are not out there trying to harm their women, even unintentionally. People make mistakes and do things wrong, of course, I won't deny that. But this is a whole other level. We've seen our mothers settle for relationships that leave them feeling empty and unfulfilled. We've seen aunts and grandmothers silently look away when their husbands stepped out with another woman, dutifully enduring that pain and humiliation. We've been taught how to behave in order to be a good wife. We've been taught that the emotional labor of a romantic relationship falls to our responsibility. And perhaps most heinously, we've been taught that it's okay to build a relationship with someone who is fundamentally wrong for us, because it's our job to help him grow into a better person, right? Where the hell does this come from? None of this is true. She acts like there's this, series of courses across American high schools and American colleges that is teaching women to do this crap. I don't see it anywhere. I certainly don't see it in the popular culture. This is obscene. They act like all men or most men are out there being abusive and toxic and destructive and dysfunctional with the women they're married to. This is absurd. And for all the accountability she's talking about women are forced to take on to themselves, I don't see any of it here. I don't see her taking responsibility for her own life here. All she is doing is blaming everyone else, specifically all men, and I suppose society at large. Let's continue here. Over time, a woman starts to focus on getting to know her soul instead of looking for her soulmate. There's no such thing as a soulmate. There are people who are more or less compatible for you. That's it. And when that happens, major shifts begin to occur. I had to change her words there because it was kind of redundant. She suddenly realizes she isn't okay with enduring silent betrayals. She isn't okay with a barely satisfying partnership. She doesn't want to fold all the laundry, cook all the meals, and carry both her own and her partner's emotional weight. And most of all, she realizes she isn't here to fix anyone, nor are male partners broken in the first place. Yeah, we're not your responsibility to fix if we are broken or not broken. If that's something you take on yourself, that's your problem. This woman sounds like, well, maybe I shouldn't diagnose her specifically, but people who talk this way tend to be incredibly codependent and come from traumatic family dynamics. This incredibly dysfunctional and destructive family dynamics, where parents are either neglectful or abusive, and the child becomes parentified and often has to actually take care of the adults, physical well-being, emotional well-being, etc. With this comes a new understanding of herself and her worth in the world. She realizes what she brings to a partnership. She realizes that the messages of her inherent unworthiness were all wrong from the very beginning. She's Sleeping Beauty, except she doesn't need a prince to wake her up with a kiss. She learns how to wake up all on her own, look around that dusty old tower and say, fuck this, I'm going to go back to my cottage in the woods and have a glass of wine. See, this does sound like a woman who has adopted virtually every princess fairy tale that exists in popular culture. And again, not men's fault. You made the choice to do that. Let's continue. My 40s have brought me clarity on these two issues. I know what I want in a partnership and I know my own worth. I'm no longer willing to compromise on what I want and settle for a lukewarm love that positions me, the woman, as secondary and I'm no longer willing to let a partner convince me that I don't deserve their love and respect. Fine. Go ahead. That's great. No problem with that. I don't know what the hell this has to do with blaming all men. Maybe you just don't know how to pick. Take some accountability. Where's this accountability you're always talking about? I guess because that's been imposed from the outside by men and society, that her real empowerment is not taking accountability for the choices and decisions that she has made. My experience has been that many men don't like this. I'm the woman, after all. I'm supposed to smile and wait patiently when a man suddenly stops texting or calling for days or weeks at a time until he's ready to reprioritize me. I mean, you can either accept it or you don't accept it. That's your choice right there. Don't give your time, attention, and energy to men who don't prioritize you. It's pretty simple, right? Very simple solution. I guess not for her. I'm supposed to remain silent when a boundary has been breached and not inconvenience him by bringing the violation to his attention. No, you're supposed to. That's the whole point of communication. Again, this sounds like codependence. I'm supposed to fit my schedule around his work and family obligations. I'm supposed to laugh when he teases me about being overly emotional and to diminish my own accomplishments because my work is just art. Again, codependence. In other words, I'm supposed to make him feel good and make his life easier without having any such expectation of him doing that for me. Well, you are supposed to make him feel good and make his life easier. And if you're able to pick correctly, if you know what actually it means to look for a man who is good and decent and caring and loving and supportive, then you would be able to find that kind of a guy. But it doesn't sound like you've ever figured out how to do that. And when I refuse this script, things shift dramatically. They withhold their attention from me. They retreat. They stop freely sharing important information. And eventually, they tell me they lost their feelings for me and that they can't move forward any longer. Well, yeah, because it sounds like you're dating narcissistic personality disorders. Disordered men. That's what it sounds like you're dating. You're a codependent caretaker. Well, you could be a codependent caretaker. Because if that's what you're getting, I would know. I used to be one. I'm in recovery myself when it comes to codependent caretaking, and that's what it sounds like this is. I know they are annoyed with me. I know they think I'm haughty and unreasonable. I know they're punishing me for stepping out of line. I'm 45, childless, and never been married. They thought I would be desperate enough to do whatever it took to keep their attention, but they got me all wrong. Okay, lady. Let's continue. I know what I want and I know who I am. If my online dating profile was still active, that's what I'd put at the top. Yeah, that's not going to attract good, decent men. If that's what you're doing, then you're doing everything wrong. The kind of man you're going to attract is the kind of man who's going to be narcissistic because he wants to not respect the boundary you just set. Because that's what you've just done. When you put on your dating profile, I know who I am and I know what I want, you're the equivalent of a woman who sits at the bar with her head over her drink like this, not looking at anyone, not making eye contact, not talking or being friendly. You know what that's going to attract? That's going to attract narcissists. Because only a narcissist would see that and experience the challenge, the rush of, that woman's a challenge. That woman doesn't want to be approached. So I'm going to go ahead and violate that boundary and do what I want because I only think about myself. A man who cares about people, who is supportive and listening, who knows how to listen, who is interested in a woman for the sake of her, is going to look at that woman, see that she doesn't want to be approached, and respect that. You're going about this all wrong, my friend. Maybe that would scare away the type of men who would mistake me as an easy-to-manipulate, desperate woman who would put up with any old shit. I just explained why that one has the exact opposite effect. You see, I won't sit around for 2 hours waiting for a man to get off a business call when we had already made other plans. I'm not going to put up with a man teasing me about my work or my emotional depth, and I most definitely will not tolerate lies or a suspicious lack of transparency. Nor should you. When I put these boundaries down, the guys in question react with shock or anger. Apparently, I'm supposed to feel lucky to have their attention. I'm supposed to be willing to put up with whatever they have to hand out. But sorry, guys, I know what a fucking amazing partner I am. I know how much I bring to the table. I am a diamond, and I will not allow men to treat me like some random sedimentary rock. Okay. Not exactly very humble anymore. And you know, something else that also occurs in dating and relationships, like attracts like. We tend to attract who we are. So if you haven't gotten any therapy, which she hasn't mentioned here, but if this is like you, if you have these experiences, seeking out some counseling, some therapy would be a good idea, I would say. She continues, I'm not afraid to say goodbye. It might hurt for a moment if my feelings got involved, but believe me, I'd rather be alone than settle for someone who can't offer me what I'm looking for and who treats me poorly. Instead of changing, instead of begging, instead of settling, I'll instead walk him to the door. I'll walk with him to the door if he's already leaving and see him out with a smile. I have things to do after all and can't afford to be distracted by cheap performances. I want the real deal or nothing at all. Yeah, that sounds like a very reasonable person. And a woman like that is, indeed, the hardest kind of date. There's nothing in relationships hold for me that would be worth giving up my needs and my sense of worth at this point in my life. Perhaps Jane Eyre said it best. I can live alone if self-respect and circumstances require me to do so. I need not to sell my soul to buy bliss. I have an inward treasure born with me, which can keep me alive if all extraneous delights should be withheld or offered only at a price I cannot afford to give. This woman sounds miserable, I have to say. Which is sad, unfortunately. But that's all I got for tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and hit the like button. If you didn't like it, go ahead and hit the dislike button. Leave all comments and questions in the comment section below. If you have any personal stories or articles that you discovered that you'd like me to read on the YouTube channel, go ahead and email them to therevolutionarymail@gmail.com, and I will go ahead and check it out. Again, my name is Alex. This has been The Revolutionary Mail. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.